I think the one most crucial factor that comes out is the employment rate. That is falling quite sharply, and without enough jobs being created, the broader prosperity will not happen. So even though Karnataka is a bigger economy and it's the fruits of development or the fruits of growth are not getting shared, and that I think is a crucial concern that voters should keep in mind.
The state of Karnataka goes to the polls on May 10 and the results will be counted on May 13th. This is crucial election not only because Karnataka is one of India's biggest and most influential states, but also because it could set the tone for a series of crucial elections in the coming months leading all the way to the national general elections in early 2024. Udit Misra, Deputy Associate Editor at the Indian Express, tells us more about some of the key economic and social metrics of the state.
So Karnataka is one of the biggest and most influential economies within the country. We have data from the RBI for the year ending 2021-22. And Karnataka's economy, if you look at it from the gross state domestic product perspective, was around 20.5 lakh crores. That's, it would put it somewhere close to the third or the fourth largest economy in the country. In the data that we had, Tamil Nadu was slightly above it for that particular year, but it's one of the biggest and most influential economies because of the size being that big. So, the gross state domestic product is like a variable which is like the GDP of the state, all the market value of all goods and services produced within the geographical boundary of that state. But it also takes into account the effect of inflation. So often, to understand the economy better, we should look at the real gross state domestic product, which takes away the effect of inflation. And if we look at that, then we find that the gross state domestic product for Karnataka is around 12.5 lakh crores. Now it has grown over the last 5 years by around 24%. So 5 years ago in 2017-18, it was around 10.1 lakh crores. And so the growth has been there, and it's much better than most other states. The chart would show that possibly Andhra Pradesh and Telangana have similar rates of growth. So that's the real size of the economy, or the size of the economy in the real terms. When we look at the size of the economy, it again gives only a part picture or a partial picture of the economy, because that's the sum total of the whole economy. We do not know what's happening to the average citizen in that state. So that is why we look at the real per capita income. This is also an average, sort of an arithmetic mean, and doesn't actually say that this is as much as what everybody gets, but it gives you a sense of where different states are in terms of prosperity levels. And there we find that in 2021-2022, Karnataka's real per capita income was around 1,68,000 rupees. And this has grown by around 19% over the last 5 years. And again, only Andhra Pradesh and Telangana seem to have done better than that over the last 5 years. We can see in the chart the similar numbers for other states. For example, Uttar Pradesh has a real per capita income of 40,432 rupees, which is almost 1/4 of what it is in Karnataka. So that gives you a certain sense of how much better off an average person or an average Indian in Karnataka is as against an average Indian in Uttar Pradesh. As the we'll pull up the chart for this the data, we've put together the data again sourced from RBI for what the inflation rate was in each of the past 5 years. And we can see that on 3 of the 5 years, Karnataka's inflation rate has been lower than the India average, and actually it has been lower than many other states. Some states like Bihar have done better in terms of inflation, but more or less it has sort of been lower than the India average. So again, that gives you a certain sense of how an average citizen faced, what kind of price pressures they faced during the last 5 years. The unemployment rate, and we have data here from CMIE, typically has stayed below the national average. And this is a long-standing story, barring the two COVID waves, where the unemployment rate rose quite considerably. Unemployment rate in Karnataka has typically been below the national average, and substantially below the national average. Unemployment rate is essentially a measure of the number of people who were demanding jobs but were without those jobs. So it is a good measure in an economy where the proportion of people demanding jobs is constant, or is a stable thing. But unemployment rate is a poor measure if the proportion of people demanding jobs in an economy keeps changing or falling, as in India's case. So that is why unemployment rate is not the most accurate measure for a state like Karnataka or for a country like India, and that is why we must look at the employment rate. Now, the employment rate is different from unemployment rate in that it basically it bypasses the labor force participation issues. It looks at the total working age population of a country or a state. Working age population is population above 15 years of age, and looks at the total number of people who are with a job, who are employed currently. And so that proportion is called the employment rate. So, if we look at the data as the table shows, as of December 2017, 46% of the people who were of working age had a job in their hand. But as of December 2022, only 37% of the people who were in the working age had a job. The total number of people with a job has actually fallen over the last 5 years, between December 2017 and December 2022. Now, this is bad enough in itself because there are fewer people employed in the economy, in Karnataka's economy, even though the working age population has grown by leaps and bounds. But it also reflects on something even more pernicious, which is that the economy has been growing. So, which is to say that the GDP has grown by anywhere between 25 to 50%, depending on whether you take nominal GDP or real GDP over the last 5 years, and yet the number of jobs have actually come down, which shows the inequality element, the K-shaped recovery or K-shaped growth, that more GDP is being produced with fewer jobs being created. In fact, the job creation has been in negative. So jobs have actually been lost in the process of growth. Typically, it has been seen that richer economies, be they states or countries, richer economies typically have better health and gender metrics or family welfare metrics. And that is true for Karnataka also. It is one of the biggest economies, richer economies in the country. So when we look at the National Family Health Survey data, both for round 4 or round 5, which is the latest one, we find that Karnataka has done better than most of the country or the all India average on most parameters. There are around 131 parameters. And data like the infant mortality rate or the under 5 mortality rate shows that there's a huge difference between the all India level and the Karnataka level, Karnataka levels being much better. But there are certain metrics on which Karnataka has remained stagnant or has shown a negative trend, even worse than the rest of the country or the all India average. For example, there is stagnancy related to the children who are stunted, that is, they have lower height for their age. That number has remained largely stagnant, or the fact that children between the age of 6 to 59 months who are anemic, that number has actually gone up. It has gone up for the country also, but it has gone up for Karnataka also. And then there are other metrics like where Karnataka has actually worsened, where all India average has improved, but Karnataka has worsened. For example, the average out of pocket expenditure per child delivery in a public health facility, that number has not only increased for Karnataka at a time when for all India average it has actually fallen. Then there is similarly the incidence of married women who experienced some kind of spousal violence, like physical or sexual violence. That number is much higher in Karnataka than in the rest of the country. And while and over the last 5 years between NFHS 4 and 5, that number is actually more than doubled. So there are some odd trends also when you look at the health and family metrics. Even though on the whole, Karnataka does better than the all India average.